This is Lady Anaconda, and I just want to make it clear. The truth coming from my lips, how passionately I advocate for betas to accept their natural place, understand they'll never be able to please a woman.
Hey everyone, it is Racey in 2026 and we have so much more we want to dig into. I'm back from AVN, so many amazing stories of my time there, but me and Pagan, the amazing BWO King, we have so much that we want to get into, and here's definitely some of the topics that we're going to do a deep dive in and hopefully have some guests that are just as excited to dissect these controversial topics as we are.
Yeah. I can't wait to get into it. 2026 is here. It's good to be back with you. And yeah, what are some of the things you were thinking, Lady A, that we can
I
start
think
to talk about?
it's like hard to just pick one to start, but I love you sent me some information about these different people on all, both sides of the aisle that are into political domination, being
Yeah.
degraded and dominated about, what their political affiliation with, not just, and again, okay, so that's like the premise of it. But what's so fascinating to me is like how much I have such a specific, special approach with my subs about this kind of political domination, because there
Mm,
is that element of interracial cuckolding and the racism and the concept of reparations all wrapped into it. It's
mm-hmm.
not just about like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, taking the knee to a Republican daddy or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fascinating to me that it's already such a controversial thing, and then in my world, it's like another step further than that.
Yeah. I figured that you would resonate with those things. I sent you, there's a few links that I sent Lady A, where in the public zeitgeist, these are not kink websites. These are just regular websites like Mashable, and Marie Claire has an article that was from the Washington Post, that very mainstream media, talking about how conservatives are driving interracial kink, talking about how liberals are also into this kink in reverse, where they like to be, domed and humiliated by a conservative who is playing a dom who's playing the role of a conservative. It's fascinating on both sides, like you said, of the aisle, how people are into these things. So I thought, and what's really great about what you were just saying, if it's not obvious to to us all now, politics and race are very closely linked. You
Right.
could say, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but that's the way it is. And in this particular era that we're in, I mean, we're talking right now after the protest in Minnesota, the shootings of two people by Border Patrol or ICE. There's a lot of components to this, and all of this, of course, is under the umbrella of we are removing people from the country that are supposedly illegal aliens. We're supposed to be the worst of the worst, as they called them, and the criminals and whatnot. We see that that's not the case. We see that people are being targeted because of their skin color, because of the accent that they have. Like on camera, agents admitting, "Oh no, I'm pulling you over because of your accent." And the one I saw, the actual agent has an accent and is telling the person, "I'm pulling you over and I'm detaining you for your accent." So we're in a world where race and politics, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, are intersecting. What's
Yeah.
happening is kinks emerge from this. When these things come up, kink is closely related to it. And just like the BNWO is closely related to a lot of the political things that happened in America, going back to slavery and maybe even farther, but especially Flashpoint thing that has created a lot of kink and all of the repercussions from slavery to Jim Crow to all that. So kink and politics and race are kind of like a triangle that we can explore. So I'm loving that you want to dive into that. So we'll definitely pick that up, maybe in our next episode or the one after, and we'll dig in.
Yeah, and I might want somebody else from, that has some kind of tie into this, because there's so many layers. Because, for instance, and I talked to, of course, Saint Sarah and your Madam Indigo about this on an episode once, where we were talking about the difference between just the concept of fetish role play,
Mm-hmm.
something that's contained, into a session or something, versus a lifestyle. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, we explored the concept of understanding there is a BNWO lifestyle, and that me, as a elite QoS, as a BNWO enforcer in my role online, which, Lady Anaconda isn't a character that I created. It is a security thing to have, like, a name that's not my government name, to be online talking about what I want to talk about, what I really believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not role play the same way, and, like, helping people to understand that, like, one of my issues is that I don't like that these privileged people come online, get to play this game of pretending to submit to
Mm-hmm.
something, but then at the end, and sometimes it's to a black superior, somebody, they're saying black superior, but then it's just role play for them. They just go back out and go back to their daily life, quite potentially being a privileged, racist, bigoted,
Mm-hmm.
fuck everybody but my own,
Mm-hmm.
life. So that's somebody that has no intention whatsoever of having this kink that they're into make them a better person in their
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day life, or have any sort of interaction with these feelings, thoughts, beliefs that would
Mm-hmm.
drive them to have this kink in the first place. So it's always interesting to me when I read these political, because there's only one time I think that I read an article like this about political domination, where she's a woman in the UK, a dominatrix in the UK, where she specifically only targets humiliating conservative white males, and it is to extract funds so that she can put them back into communities that are
Mm-hmm.
affected by their actions in the real world. So, like, I want a lot more of that energy of, like, not just like, oh, this is my shtick, I'm a dom that has fun with this, and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to really see the extortion of these privileged people, because, like, there is so much damage that they can still be doing as their privileged, entitled, elitist selves out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
misogynistic and racist and potentially awful people. So you're not helping the world necessarily, like, unless you're true, like, if you can't change them and get them to have a better lifestyle, like, say, as some of the subs that we talk about that come to us with white guilt and literally want to, like, reform, like, how can I be a better person in
Mm-hmm.
my day-to-day life, please guide me, about that. Like, if they're not going to be on that wavelength, you need to be extorting them for as much as possible, so that you can basically take the reparations route of, like, taking that money and making sure it's helping the very people that they think it's funny to be, like, just putting as part of
Mm-hmm.
this role play thing. Like, just something in the article was, like, talking about um just the wanting to be humiliated for, like, oh, don't you love that, like, I don't care about the impoverished? Don't you love that I don't care about helping people, and that people are going to go without because of my greed, and, like, da da da. And it's like, I understand it's like a role play thing, but, like, are you using that to help those very people that you're involving in this fantasy? I don't know. I think it's very interesting. I would love to dig into it more. That's such a it's a unique topic. I don't think a lot of people realize how popular it is. And I can even
Yeah.
say, just coming back from, I've been to FetCon. I go to
Mm-hmm.
AVN every year. AVN is like the Oscars for, the adult industry. And they're
Mm-hmm.
really still even now, with, like, the Trump era being as long as it's been, there's still not, like, this heavy presence of political domination at these
Mm-hmm.
events. It's still very taboo. Like, like, the fact that I saw somebody on the red carpet, this amazing woman, I believe her name is Alex Harper, at Alex Harper Model. She had a full Lady Liberty outfit, and her bag was Trump's severed head, with, like, with like red jewels on the side, like I'm assuming is like the blood for
Right.
his quote unquote supposed ear getting shut. And I was just like, how fucking intensely clever, how like amazing to take a moment that who knows how many people are actually gonna see those pictures from the AVN red carpet. It's not the Oscars, but you are still taking that's somebody who's like I think you would love to talk to her. I would love to talk to her. I would love to get inside her head. And that's just it's just fascinating to me like that it's this very underground thing. It is not
Hmm.
something a lot of people know about, but it is so insanely popular. So like we see how insanely popular it is, and yet the communities that you think would like acknowledge it and make it a little more relevant, it just seems to still not be accepted.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're saying is as much of a taboo and kink there is around race, and that's considered something that's very taboo to people. But this whole political thing is even more underground and even more taboo and rarely seen.
Yeah. And I think it's just,
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do with the power dynamics of, again, just who has real power. Because as a dominatrix or a dominant man, and being the dominant in a dynamic, you do have a lot of influence, but to assume that the sub has no power is completely ignorant. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. What's also interesting to me about what you just said and what we can dig into when we do the full pod is um, you're talking about a really interesting question, which correct me if I'm wrong, but the way you brought it up was like, these people that want to use the kink as just a toy, as just this sandbox that they get into, but then they don't have any responsibility outside of their kink. And it sounded like you were saying one of the roles that the dom can have in that situation is if that person's not doing it, they're handing their finances and other resources over to this dom, and the dom can take the ball from there. So if this
right.
sub isn't doing it, the dom can do it as a surrogate for them, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can dig into more. And what I will say is the other thing that I thought was really great about what you're saying that would be an interesting point of debate, in my opinion, is what is the there's nothing. I think you would maybe agree, maybe you don't, but there's nothing wrong with someone having a kink that they don't want to take out into the real world. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I apply this outside of race to other kinks, I'm like, yeah, well, that's the thing that people want to do in that space, but they don't want to bring their diaper and
Mm-hmm.
whatever they're doing out into the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to this one, what level of responsibility um, do people feel that they have to have, and why would it be treated different than these other kinks? It's an interesting debate to have. Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
you could tell me I need to take my responsibilities outside the kink space, but why aren't you telling the guy in the diaper to do that? Is it because it's about race? Is it because it's about a thing that you feel very strongly about?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a
Mm-hmm.
really interesting, debate to have. And I think there's both sides to that. But yeah, that's fascinating what you were saying about what you saw at the AVNs. And I didn't realize but that's like one person that you saw that was overtly going there with that kink.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I get it, especially in times when things are very um, at a flashpoint like they are right now. We saw this during the George Floyd thing when George Floyd, the protests were going on in 2020, I believe, the summer of 2020 with the pandemic, and people
Mm-hmm.
were marching in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the AVN Awards, and I don't know if you know, I'm not sure, but I'll look into this for our next talk. AVN shut down the category interracial
Yeah.
during George Floyd. And I
Yeah.
don't know if they've brought it back. Maybe it's gone
No, I
still.
don't think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really interesting thing where before the marches, it was perfectly fine forever. And
Mm-hmm.
then they have this thing where they're like, oh, we're not going to acknowledge. Now, did they stop making interracial porn? No,
No.
maybe more than ever. But
Yeah.
they took away the award for it. So that's a really interesting, in my opinion, kind of perfunctory facade. Like, if you really are thinking it's something wrong with it, stop making it.
Hmm.
But no, we're
Yeah.
not going to stop making it. It makes too much money, but we're going to stop
Or
awarding it, you know?
like another thing that I can say that I would need to look into before before we like really dig into this topic is like what you're saying. Okay, you're gonna do away with this category. Okay, fine. Just like, at the end of the day on Twitter, because I had been kind of political from the get go, me and my husband with Anaconda fights and feeling like activism should be a part of what we're doing. It's like I didn't get the same amount of flack for being this QoS on Twitter during this tumultuous time where there were so many DOMs not speaking up, for what was going on, or who had been, calling them QoS, and then like people were just getting attacked for like using the terms BBC and QoS, and like, do you actually love black people? Like, and rightly so,
Hmm.
like they were being questioned. And it's just interesting too to like see that it's almost been like since just around that time, maybe just a little bit after that, this QoS FinDom Femdom explosion really happened too. So it's also interesting to see like as soon as there was like a little more direct critique of it and a little bit
Hmm.
more feeling like maybe we should adjust what we're doing, there was also an explosion of like now like now, like, not that racism isn't taboo, but like, there was a shining light on a topic now again, because we had this psychotic conservative coming into the office being so blatantly misogynistic, so blatantly hateful, so blatantly racist, that it was giving people so much energy to be those things themselves so openly. So it's like now it's gotten so basically I feel like it intensified taboo feelings about interracial and taboo feelings about being humiliated for, with the political humiliation, like all of that kind of got amplified. So it's just interesting to see that there was like immediate backlash, when the protests started against women, because even hot wives were just, throwing out the BBC thing, or maybe their whole brand wasn't I'm a Cure West, but they were using, terms, but like, oh, but I can't get political. You know how people are like, oh, I don't want to bring politics into whatever I'm doing. I'm just here to do
Hmm.
my job.
Sure.
I'm a kink dispenser, so don't read into it. I'm just here doing my job. I'm not trying to bring politics into it. It's like, but you're bringing black bodies, blackness, the experience of being a black person into your fetish, and then saying you don't want to be political. And that
Hmm.
is incredibly entitled, incredibly privileged, delusional, ignorant behavior. So it's just interesting to me, like, again, to drop that category, to like start to have that conversation of like what's right, what's wrong, like what's just immoral or whatever, not about kink shaming, but just like, is this okay? And at the end of the day, like there are so many women online now doing like strictly like literal, like basically like cuckold financial domination, and a lot more women doing it with a black partner,
Hmm.
either their boyfriend, their husband, or just collaborating with, other black content creators, and doing that whole QoS cuckold domination. Like it's just, I'm just saying, like, I know that
Yeah.
porn content has been here forever, and the lifestyle side of, all sorts of parties, etc., have been there offline forever. But like the convergence of like, this it's just interesting to me. It's a lot that
Yeah.
I would love to like explore, ask different people, like, about, because again, like, we're talking about lifestyle versus role play online or on the phone or whatever. There's plenty of hot wives that are really living this life, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, maybe I'll make some content. So now they're making content and everything, but they were living that life. They're still lifestyle before they are, and then I think about the adult industry, and I'm like, how does that work? I was like, I wouldn't want to fuck somebody I'm not attracted to,
Hmm.
whether I'm getting paid for it or not. So anyway, it's just, there's so many
Yeah.
levels
Yeah.
to
No,
how
you're right.
interesting the whole thing.
I mean, we haven't even dug
Anyway,
into like everything in these articles that we are talking about. And
no, not even
we've
close.
already talked for like, over 15 minutes about this. This is
Right.
definitely something we both are interested in. So that's definitely one we're going to do. I love that. And the fans can look forward to hearing that. And maybe what we could do, I don't know if you think this is a good idea, we could put the links to these articles we're going to be talking about next time in there. They can do their
Perfect.
homework.
Yes.
They can have their own
Mm-hmm.
opinions before we even talk about it. And, we can jump in, and people can have comments even before we jump into this, and we can address what people are saying. So.
That's excellent. Yeah, they could, if they have questions or specific parts they want to make sure that we
Yeah.
touch on, they can.
Okay,
That's
cool.
excellent.
Was
Amazing
there
king.
another area? I think you sent me something from like I believe it was called like Mr. Red Pills or something. Was a link.
Probably.
Um, was there something specifically about those, or was that kind of like the intersection of the same stuff, or was it something different?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's definitely similar, and just basically, well, definitely a couple different things I think we said, and again, I almost don't even want to delve into it at all because like I just want to go forever on this, but just the the reality of the incel culture within the conservative,
Mm-hmm.
collective, and how funny I think it is when I read these articles like the one you sent about the political, domination and everything. There was just like this offhand kind of description about something, and they were like basically alluding to this perception that they didn't feel like they were explaining something that exists. It was like they were talking about something that like, oh, well, obviously, like we all know this, like a common, you know what I mean? Like this common sense thing. And it was this perception that the conservative man is manly and the
Mm.
liberal man is unmanly because
Mm-hmm.
it's deemed unmanly and not masculine to care about other people. Like that this perception that toxic masculinity is masculinity. So like having any sort of empathy or compassion, is a weakness thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting because I feel like it's such a thing that you should be calling out and explaining because it's not real. That's like, propaganda for these white males to be told that they're so masculine and powerful simply because they're white males, and that being conservative is about protecting that or whatever, and that the weak libs, just I don't know, just that this idea of like the norm
Mm-hmm.
is that the conservative man is manly, whereas like in my domination specifically, I'm making fun of them for the fact that they're so fucking fragile. So I just think it's so, again, something I would love
Yeah.
to like dig into because I'm reading this article and all these people have been interviewed about, their experiences and their beliefs. And I'm like, I'm still outlier, always, every time.
Mm. Yeah.
Even in an article talking about like what I do, I'm still the fucking outlier that they still don't even really dig in on. And I think a lot of it has to do with at the end of the day, they don't want in mainstream media it being like, oh, there are white women online who are championing black power and black excellence, and they are actively, boycotting white boys and condemning the, conservatives that come to them and shining the light on just how insecure and fragile and pathetic they actually are, and that their concept of masculinity is a total fucking lie. It's like nobody wants to
Yeah.
talk about that. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to
Yeah.
showcase that. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
just so obvious. It's so obvious to me, seeing
Yeah.
that being left out of the
Yeah. No,
article.
I
So
love
anyway,
that. I love that. Well, you know what? We're gonna fucking talk about it if
yeah,
nobody else is.
that's
Yeah.
right.
So I love that.
That's
And
right.
what that brought up for me too is like maybe talking about this idea. You're really great to call out what is masculinity. There's this performative version of masculinity that's
Mm-hmm.
like a 1980s Rambo Schwarzenegger movie poster where it's
Right.
like greased up pecs and guns is what a man is that conservatives have been championing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, as we know, the reason why the guy has that massive pickup truck and the fucking AK rack on the back is because he's got nothing between his legs and he's
Yep.
overcompensating. What he's putting on this kabuki theater puppet show of what masculinity is because he's not that. And a lot
Yep.
of times in interracial, what I've come across personally, what I've heard many, many women say outside of my experience, when they're talking about why they prefer black men, it's
It's
the more
masculinity.
real, actual masculinity that is
Mm-hmm.
effortless, that is not performative, is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting if you're so hyper masculine, if you are this thing that every woman wants, why are you fucking white boys getting run over by guys who are actually masculine and are
Yep.
not doing this patriarchal performative version of it?
Mm-hmm.
Women can see through this
Yep.
and they are attracted to the real deal. So it is really interesting now how that intersects with this whole race and sex culture. The In some ways, I can't speak for a woman who's attracted to men, but I do notice that when I encounter these women, they're often talking about the fact that it's the old expression, real recognizes real.
Mm-hmm.
When you see it, you can feel it in your bones when a man is really dominant and coming from a place where he's not putting on a dom suit and walking out into the world. And when they just are that thing, it's going to be more natural. It's going to be more attractive and sexier. So yeah, we could definitely. That's a second subject that we could dive into, and I'll even try to look up some articles about that in terms of just like
Absolutely.
masculinity and how women are responding to it, because we see the rise right now. I would say we're in a resurgence of that bullshit patriarchal masculinity because it's been emboldened
Mm-hmm.
by the current administration, this whole bullshit Pete Hegseth fucking, make America, look like we're strong. No fatties in the military bullshit. Like all of this
Yeah.
ridiculous
Only on
shit that they're
ice.
doing. Yeah, exactly. And then I see like it doesn't look like that policy's kicked in yet, bro. Um,
Right.
but there is this thing where they're trying to put on this facade, and it's the last gasps of patriarchy and white male. Like, Donald Trump is the last 50s guy
Right.
that is going to be a president because they're dying. So
Yeah.
as things progress, when he says make America great again, we all know what the dog whistle is really saying. Let's go back to
Mm-hmm.
the time when these brown people and women didn't have as many rights and when a
Mm-hmm.
white straight male could run over everybody. That's what make America great again is. It wasn't great for women back then, wasn't great for people of color back then. So you're talking to your white conservative male patriarchal constituents and people who support them, because there's a ton
Right.
of women that support that. There's a ton of people of color that support it. That doesn't make it not white male patriarchal conservatism just because you can put a few black people and women behind you at a rally.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that are going to support you of all ilk, but majority of them are white males, and they are doing their damnedest to try to hold on. And that's what actually makes me, like, underneath it all, I'm laughing
Mhm.
because I smell desperation and fear. So
Absolutely.
the pain that they can inflict right now, I would equate it to like if I'm choking somebody underwater and they're like having their last gasps of air, just because they're scratching my arms while they're dying doesn't mean they're winning. Yeah, they're putting some pain on me, but it's because they're dying. They're drowning. I'm drowning them, and I can take a few scratches. These are
Yeah.
scratches to me. What they're doing right now, this is clearly desperate people who see that, oh, the country's turning brown no matter what I can do, because
Mm-hmm.
people are not just what they used to be in these secluded, sequestered groups. People are mixing with each other. Race is becoming something that the future of people is just a brown person
Yep.
where you can't even tell their race. The Vin Diesel effect. The person that you can't even tell like what race is that. That's how humans are starting to look because
Yeah.
we're just not isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And also because a lot of white women are having brown babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
that's
I think it's fascinating. They don't want to talk, nobody's trying to talk about the rise in both safe for work content of women being on the boycott white boys train, like,
hmm
as well as actual, triple X content and fetish content. It's like, it's not just sequestered over to Twitter anymore. Like
hmm
when I was started, I
yeah.
kept getting kicked off of every live streaming platform because the minute I would say, and honestly, any term, if I said black supremacy, that was a problem. If I'd said white boys, white men, white males, white supremacy, like all these basic things that I was saying just to like explain different things that were happening, I was getting kicked off, right?
Mm.
And now to see the implosion of women, like either like formerly conservative women coming to God, or liberal women just being very vocal, or even I've seen black queens on TikTok calling out how many more white women they're seeing, calling out white bullshit and how that is the fucking trend we need, and let's see more of
hmm
that and everything, like, but you don't see a article. I haven't seen any articles really talking, pointing to that, really being like, look at how, significant um, this is. And
Yeah.
I just think that that's, super important to recognize, is that there's like, it's hugely popular. It's like, it's a shift that's like noticeable in the amount of content that's being made of like white people calling out white people, and white people educating other white people about Black history. And like,
Hmm.
that is a serious trend that we are seeing. It is not just a rise of BBC cuckolding porn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
It's mainstream. Yeah.
big time,
Yeah.
big time, big
No,
time.
yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. So that sounds great. Yeah, that's another area that we can get into, is this whole thing of performative masculinity, and how it's interesting to me how when you fight these things, all you do is water the seed of the kink for it.
Right?
So the
Yeah,
more
it's so
vocal
true.
you are, the more you try to suppress these things, you're working against yourself. You're better off shutting the fuck up,
Yeah,
because if you try to fight it, you're just going to cause people to go, "Why is that person fighting it? Let me look into it more." You're just
yeah,
you're pouring honey all over it and attracting more, bees to it. So I just
yeah.
think that that's a really fascinating thing, that the more umbrage and anger comes from, I know for me personally, the more umbrage and anger I get from these like sissy boys that think that they're men, that are mad about what I'm doing, that
Hmm.
just fucking makes my dick harder.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't, it works against you in my opinion.
I wanted to ask you too, how we should go about the fact that I would love for you to talk about, and maybe I just need to bring my king on, and the two of you could kind of talk about it a little bit, but like,
Hmm.
just the because okay, that's one thing you saying, like, it just gets you dick hard. It just makes you want to go harder when like the white boy beta bitches, regardless, if they identify
Hmm.
cuck, sissy cuck. I think they're all sissy cucks, but anyway,
Hmm.
if it's not that, but rather other Black people in the lifestyle, because again, we've clarified, like, I'm a little bit more professional with content. I'm making content, I'm doing online sessions. You're
Hmm.
a little bit more, you're out here at these events, you're out here at these
Hmm.
parties, you're out here, you've been in, in the lifestyle for a long time. Do you
Hmm.
get a lot of pushback from like other, like, either whether they're dominant, submissive couples, into cuckolding, not into cuckolding, Black people in the lifestyle? Are they pretty anti BNWO? Because I'm so curious, like,
Yeah.
how much of a reach does it have? And like, I want to start inviting people on so I can start to get an idea what is the general perception of it. Because I was thinking about, if I was at AVN and I just went around and did interviews, there's such an easy way to backdoor, like, basically being like going to Black content creators and asking them, would you be interested in a Black owned kink space that was entirely about serving and worshiping and obeying Black supremacy? I bet you they would say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like fun," or at least it sounds like something I would like to see how
Yeah.
it goes down, and this and that. But I feel like when you lead with BNWO, there is like all this other shit that's attached to it, simply because of like the nonsense of these white beta bitches online, that you can never completely squash it or stop it or control it. The
Yeah,
the
that's a really
slop,
good
the
question.
slop they make.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're asking me specifically about how Black couples respond to this, or Black men respond to this, or you just saying in general everyone when it comes to
I
like
get
BNWO and all that.
Because do you like, are most of the events that you go to cuckolding based? So it's mostly couples,
Oh, right.
would you
So,
say?
I do. Yeah, it's mostly couples. These events, I don't know of any event that thrives on anything but couples. Couples are the bread and butter of the, let's just say the entire swinger space. I
Mm-hmm.
would put these events all under the massive umbrella of swinger, and then you can do
Yeah.
your subsets of that. And then the events I'm going to, I'm focusing on interracial things like Splash Mocha or whatever like that, where there's an interracial theme. And then the other thing that I'm doing though is specifically cuckold related. Splash is not cuck centric, but because of things like the Keys and Anklets podcast with Michael C.
Mm-hmm.
The owners of Splash and the staff will be the first to admit, because of his podcast, cuckolding became much more mainstream. And Splash, because let's be honest, they're a fucking business. They're like, yeah, we'll take your money. So
Right.
they didn't exclude the cucks. So what we've seen in the last several years is everything from it's gone from the cuck that is like two or three cucks at the pool,
Mm,
in Florida, and now there's like eight of them with their cages out, and they're hanging out together
gotcha.
having drinks, and they're in the open. Why? Because they're accepted and people are
Yeah.
not hating on them. Imagine that, right? So
Hmm.
I am going to cuckold events. There's a couple of them, and in fact there's an event that I am going to be doing in Palm Springs, that to the point that and this is like, this is something I was going to talk to you about, but we'll just do it fucking live right here. um, I'm putting together an event with Michael C. of Keys and Anklets with the BNWO thing that digs into that more. So this is an entire weekend where you take it up another notch from just I'm at Splash Mocha and I like black men, or I like, the cucks and interracial whatever. We're going to
Okay.
go a little more into it, where there is a BNWO worshiping of the kings. We're going to have, sessions. We're going to have people that are coming in doing actual professional doming. It's going to be a weekend that's more BNWO centric. So I'm actually spearheading that myself. You heard it here first. And
Amazing.
the first
That's
person
wonderful because I've wanted something like that to happen. But again, just like how when people were talking to me about BNWO back in Tumblr days, I knew that it wasn't my place to start a BNWO website, even though other girls have done it, Love It Black,
sure.
etc. I'm looking at y'all. I wouldn't do it. So I would be
Right.
thrilled to come, thrilled to whatever you need me promote it, co-host, whatever you want from me. I would be fucking thrilled,
Well,
honored,
that is
privileged, amazing,
all the above is what
amazing.
we I just started talking to Michael C about this because he's already doing events in Palm Springs at this same
Mm.
mansion. It's a
Yeah.
massive
I
mansion
talked
with
to him about,
jacuzzi and pool and all. Yeah, it's a really
yeah.
great place. We're gonna do it there, and the first person that came to both of our minds was you. So yeah, I'm asking you now publicly, and you've already responded. So like, you're the other person we wanted to do this with. Um, and
Amazing.
so that is to answer your question though, BNWO, I think that the heart of your question is how is it perceived by us civilians that are not thin doms, that are not putting ourselves out there in the media with Twitter accounts and all that stuff. How does it come across to the rest of the population? And I do
But also
think that
kinky
BNWO,
people. Kinky people too, like
right,
kinky black couples that are not
right, right,
members of the Black New World Order.com because like, I
right,
just I'm curious because
yeah,
I
I,
want to see if there's something I can do with, say, like what I do with my subs that would be beneficial or helpful because I just want there
yeah,
to be a positive. I mean, I understand everything's got polarity. I understand there's
sure,
negative and positive in terms of how people view something or relate to something. No matter what you do,
sure,
everything is never going to be
yeah,
100%, But yes, I am curious about the reactions that you get from black couples or black women or black men that like aren't super into even some black men might not even be into BBC like saying BBC talking about BBC.
hmm
I've certainly spoken to a few in my time, so just
yeah,
it's
yeah.
always
It's
interesting to
a
me. So if there's anybody you think we should bring on that would be happy to talk about, like that's always going to be something I want to
yeah.
shine light on. So
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I think that like, and this is, again, this is just my limited experience. We all just have our, experience that we can speak from. So I'm not trying to, extrapolate this out. But I do think that in my experience, a lot of people don't exactly necessarily know what BNWO is, or they have heard things where they may not be fully aware, where they think it's something that is locked into some very extreme thing. They don't even understand that it's not a real world political movement,
mm,
like the Black Panthers. Some people hear BNWO and they take it literally as you're trying to overthrow the world order politically. So you've got like
mm-hmm.
berets on and you got AKs out in the street. They don't understand the kink element of it as much and they just take it literally. So that's something that I've come across a few times. And then there's those who do understand it's a kink and that there's some aspects to it that are not to be taken like, a radical political organization. But they still don't understand fully what it is. And one of the things I think they don't understand the most I've come across is how much Black women are centered in it. I think
Mm,
one of the biggest humps to get over is letting Black women know they have a place there, and not just a place, but they have a
the
throne.
place. Right.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that they go on to Twitter, like, and I don't blame people. Most people learn about this stuff through porn. And
Yeah.
obviously, porn is going to give you a skewed view of anything. Um, and so when they look at it, they see Black men and white women 99.9% of the time.
Right.
They don't encounter the Black female with power who is into it and is getting off on this. So they feel excluded. They're like, I get it. This is between Black men and white women. And that's why a
Yeah.
lot of hate comes out. That's why a lot of vitriol comes out because they're not fully aware of their place.
Yeah.
So that's just my experience.
Which is funny to me only because literally it's about white women going extinct. So like to with all respect, because I can't ever sympathize or empathize or understand what it is to be a Black woman. I would never fucking pretend to understand what a Black woman feels or is thinking or perceives something as. I can only try to educate myself about my own actions and how they're perceived and work in my own world or whatever. But like
Hmm.
literally white men getting off to the idea of these white women signing themselves up to be like going to like taken out of existence as like, oh, I'm not gonna have a white daughter and I don't care. Like these white men are
Hmm.
like mostly focused on this idea of the race traitor, of the white woman, like just signing themselves up to go extinct. So it's like still, again, like it's like these white guys talking about BNWO, but it's like all about them. It's all about like them
Hmm.
and like their identity as a white man and everything like that. And just like, so it's so not BNW. That to me is so not BNWO that like it's off.
Yeah.
That bothers me so much that's what so many people like whether they're into it or hate it feel like the interracial cuckolding is like the first image that they comes to mind. And it's like just so nonsense to me because like that has nothing really to do with like to have like white slaves like fucking serving you, like
Hmm.
not being pleasured by a Black man, but like literally on their hands and knees fucking serving you. That's BNWO. So it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
again, but that's my goal this year is to like make more content that's less focused on humiliating the cuck and using the cuck and everything. Because I was just like, I realized I was having a lot of fun doing hot dom shit with my friends and slutty shit and everything, but I really want to challenge the expectation of content because I think there
Yeah.
needs to be anyway. But anyway, yeah,
Well,
that's
yeah.
just
Well, the last thing I'll say about it is, I think you're doing it. I think that this is the kind of thing that someone is going to come across who is not going to go on Twitter, who's not looking at the porn even, who's just on YouTube and they come across something, they're looking at a political video about how
mm,
race intersects with politics, and the algorithm is going to lead them to the podcast we're about to do about race, kink, and you see what I'm saying? And
mm-hmm,
so
yeah.
what you're doing right now in this space, I think, is going to be doing some of that work that you're trying to do, which
I hope
people in
so.
the mainstream are going to be able to come across something on YouTube because they're more vanilla, and then they're going to find this conversation, and then they're going to get more insight. So, yeah, I think that that's a really great thing, and it's a fascinating the BNWO thing. I mean, I consider myself definitely inside that circle, and there's a wide spectrum in BNWO, and it is fascinating to me. Like you were just talking about something. All right, I'm gonna be real with you.
What?
You
Oh
were just
boy.
talking about no, but you were just talking about something where you're like, well, if you walk this dog down the road, it's actually the extinction of like white women and I guess men too, right? Like the if
Mm-hmm.
the BNWO, if you take it to its full extent, there's these less and less white babies are going to be born, and that's what you're talking about, I believe,
Yeah.
which is fascinating and also fucking breaks my heart because I love white women. But I
Oh
kid,
my
I kid.
God.
Uh, but like no more white women. What the fuck world are we building here? No, no.
Well,
But I think that that's a really fascinating aspect of
it's
this.
recessive DNA. It's still gonna pop up and shit, right? Because there's like Africans that are albino. So like, it's more the funniness. Like, and I don't remember if I sent you the video or just a screenshot from it. Another video that you either sent me or I sent you of the girl like laughing hysterically, and she's just like, "How can you be the superior race, white people, when you're like
Oh
literally
yeah,
like a genetic mutation? Like you're not even a
yeah,
race. You
yeah.
don't
I saw that.
like
It's
in the
not even a
most
real thing.
the
Yeah,
most basic of senses. There is no white race. Like you
yeah.
were just like even
It's
using
a
that
made up
term
thing.
makes you just so obviously stupid and uneducated that you don't even understand genetics. You don't even understand like humanity in the most basic. Like it just.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God. It
You're
was just
right.
so she was just like she was like glitching out like laughing, and I thought that was so funny. She's like
No,
how
yeah. You sent me
superior,
that. I
how
saw that. You're the one that sent that. That was
I'll
yeah.
link
That
that
was
below
funny.
because that shit was just hilarious. Like
And it's true. The reason why we're laughing is because it's true. Because whiteness is a club that was created, and you can tell it's not a real thing because they've added
yeah,
people to
it's
the
not.
club that were excluded.
Yeah.
Before.
And
Irish and
again, it's
Italians
bootlicking
weren't
though
white.
too.
Yeah,
You'll let people in that are non-white as long as they're bootlickers, like the white people in it. Like as long as everybody's
yeah,
bootlicking whoever the power is above them. It's it's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. And
pyramid scheme racism.
yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like I get why people clamor to join that club when the white superiors allow them in. So if you're Irish in 1800, you're not white. If you're Italian in
Right,
1807, you're not fucking white. But then there was
right.
a time when they needed more people. They needed more votes. They needed them to join the club. So they're like, "Oh, now you can join the club." And it's like they don't fucking give a shit about you. They didn't want you
Yep.
yesterday, but now
Right.
why do you think they want you today? And then the people would run to join it. And why? Here's the other thing that's
You
like the
just
real mind fuck.
cut out for a second there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't
Yeah.
hear the last like minute probably.
Well, yeah, I was just saying like, this whole idea that like we get to join the white club um is really interesting to me because and I get why people do it. There's power there. There's privilege there.
Yeah.
They're saying you can walk behind the door that's marked private. I get that. But then it's really interesting how quickly people forget where they came from. Like just yesterday, you had to live in the slums with the people who weren't white, and now you are white, and then you can get a job, you can do this, you can own a home, and people will jump into that. And the most fascinating thing to me about that whole thing is white is not a real thing, as that woman was pointing
Yeah.
out, and then at the same time it's a very fucking real thing. It affects
Yeah.
people's lives every day, not being white
Yeah.
or being white. It's a not real thing that because of the way humans work, what we believe becomes reality. And
Yeah.
so you have to deal with the reality of this bullshit thing called whiteness. It's crazy.
That's just like the same thing of like, people that are we're in the matrix and nothing is real it's like,
Mm-hmm.
listen, that motherfucker's bills are real. Like, what are you like? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are things that are always going to ground people in their physical reality. So to tell somebody that it's not real is so dismissive of like, how do you want me to live? Like, what is that? Like, I can understand you trying to like, explain manifestation. Like, that's one thing, but just to try and like be dismissive, like that's not somebody's reality. Yeah, is just
Yeah, yeah.
so ignorant.
That's a whole metaphysical rabbit hole. It's one of my favorite
Yeah,
ones to go down. But it is an
yeah.
interesting thing when people are like
Spirituality
something's not
versus
real.
physical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because to your point, if I'm in the Matrix or not, I got Matrix bills I got to pay to keep my lights on in the Matrix. So either way, it's my reality.
But also,
Yeah.
it's like I said this the other day. Like I'm just so upset because I was at a bar. So January 6th, when they stormed the Capitol, those little micro dick losers.
Hmm.
I was sitting there having a beer with my friend, and I remember like we're sitting there, we're watching it. Like I can't believe it's happening. And I turned around, I was like, it's crazy. I always thought I'd be on the team that thought like when the moment fucking came and we felt like this is what we got to do to overthrow this
Revolution.
tyrannical fucking government, because that's why we have the right to bear arms, is to literally
Mm-hmm.
combat a tyrannical fucking government like we did the first time we came the fuck over here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always thought I'd be on the fucking team of storm the fucking Capitol. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so fucking mad that they misused that fucking move.
Yeah.
Fucking,
Yeah.
just instead it became for the micro dicks to like try and desperately hold on to, as we're saying, like they're terrified of white extinction. That's literally why they stormed the Capitol. Like, what the fuck? Because
Yeah.
Daddy
Yeah. You're
Trump wouldn't
right.
have been involved, and it would have been a Democrat who at least tried to do some, to a certain level, performative politics to make it seem like she cared about people. I don't think that we'd have a Gestapo. So anyway, it's just like,
No,
what
yeah,
the
that's it. You're right. That's hilarious. That you're like, I thought when the revolution was televised, I'd be on TV with
I
them,
thought I'd be
and this
on like the front
motherfucker,
lines. Fuck.
they
God,
stole our fucking gig.
Jesus
I love it.
Christ. So,
I
but
love
we're
it.
in the streets. So, I'm like, I told my husband, I was like, listen, I know it sounds like dangerous, like as a mom, like, that's why everybody's critiquing. Not everybody, losers on the right that are absolute pieces of human excrement that don't deserve to have opinions or voices or anything, and they should be collared and muzzled and caged, saying things about Renee Good, like she shouldn't have been there with what she
Mm,
thought was her constitutional right protecting her to be able to be there and not be in danger, that
mm-hmm.
she was irresponsible being a mom and being there, and it's like, so, and I find that so disgusting because I genuinely feel like I should be taking a trip somewhere, maybe to California and to the ice out of LA. Like, I want to be on the, because I went to the protests in Cleveland, and I marched with Black Lives Matter Cleveland, and I had my own fucking flag and everything. Like, I was not fucking around. I knew I had to show face. I knew I had to show up, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
like that I'm. It was just, like, there's a whole thing right now going on where, the sex workers are like, it feels so grimy to self, because our whole thing is that we're our advertising, like, people aren't pulling their ads for their small business off of the cable channels right now just because of what's going on in the streets in Minneapolis. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but sex workers were like, some of us feel like so grimy, so icky, self-promoting when this is
Mm-hmm.
going on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was
Yeah.
certainly a topic in 2022 where like black doms were literally
Sure.
like, white doms, shut the fuck up. Like, don't even promote yourselves right now. And I loved that energy, honestly. But like, it's just, that, like, I felt I'm responsible for other models, and I have responsibilities to, people I committed to show up. But it just felt kind of weird to kind of feel like on a vacation almost, because my job is so fun. What I do is, I'm so passionate and I love it so much. So it's just,
Sure.
it's a shit fucking time where you just feel like, okay, again, Matrix is real. I still have to like do the things, but also maybe it's not real, and maybe we should all drop what we're doing and storm the fucking Capitol for real. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
some
I hear you.
thoughts, some thoughts
Yeah. Yeah.
swirling around in there.
No, those are really good points, and maybe it's a mix of both. Maybe, there's not just one or the other. It's not binary. But yeah, I'm loving
True.
everything you're saying. Yeah. Well, I think we got enough for
A
our
lot.
next, maybe couple of episodes to talk about. And this is a great preview for people to look forward to. We'll throw, I guess,
Yeah,
it sounds like we're going to throw the links in to some of these topics from some
definitely.
articles that we've been reading. And then once we jump in, we might even have some like questions or thoughts from other people that we can incorporate. So I'm ready to go. 2026, baby.
Yeah, the takeover is very, very real, and the education is here. So ignorance is a choice at this point, because we're making sure that you have the conversations that we all need to have, and the opportunity this time to also submit questions, or, if you take the time, read what we're reading, and you have a point you want to bring up or something, absolutely. Let's get into it. This is Racey. This is Lady Anaconda. Thank you, amazing King Pagan, for taking some time to flesh this out. You know me. I'm ready to go deep.
Anytime, baby. When if you call me for anything, I am down. I'm loving it. I like where we're going, and let's get it in.
Let's do it.